What's up, you friggin' geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to convert decimal ratios to a fraction that has whole numbers. So as you can see, I got a couple examples here. So let's start with this first one on the top. 0.4 to 0.05. So that's my ratio, right? How do I convert this into a fraction? Well, this is going to be like a two-step process, okay? So your first step is going to be rewriting this as a fraction. So 0.4 to 0.05, I'm going to rewrite that as a fraction, okay? And it's very important, okay? Order is very important. Whichever number you have listed first is the number that goes on top in your fraction, okay? So if I rewrite this as a fraction, it'd be 0.4 over 0.05. Your second step is just figuring out which decimal has the most decimal place values, okay? Because we're going to do a simple little trick with it. Okay, so for example, 0.4, right? This ends in the tenths place, okay? Now, down here, 0.05, this ends in the tenths, hundredths place, okay? So this one extends further than this one, right? And since this one ends in the hundredths place, we're going to multiply the top and bottom by 100, okay? So multiply the top and the bottom by 100. Okay, and I'm going to extend this a little bit more. Okay, now how do you multiply a decimal by a power of 10? And if you need a quick refresher on that, I'll link a video to that in the card above. But basically, all you have to do is look at how many zeros you have here. So if we have 2 zeros, all we're going to do is take our decimal point and move it 2 times to the right. Okay, so 1, 2. All right, so that's where your decimal point is now. Okay, and if you notice something, we don't have a number here, right? It's empty. So whenever you have a blank spot like that, in order to fill in the blank, all you have to do is write in a 0 right there. Okay, so that's how you deal with the top. So let's do the same thing to the bottom. So again, we're multiplying by a power of 10. So it's still 100, right? There's 2 zeros right here. So we're going to move the decimal 2 times to the right. So 1, 2. Okay, so that's where your decimal goes. Okay, so let me simplify this a little bit. Okay, so now up here we have 40, right? Because we moved the decimal 2 times to right there. So now on top we have 40, and that's going to go over the bottom, right? We moved the decimal 2 times to right there, which now we just have 5. Okay, so now your fraction right here is 40 over 5. But we can reduce this a little bit, right? So the top and bottom are both divisible by 5. So if you divide the top and the bottom by 5, this would reduce to, let's see, 40 divided by 5 is 8. That's going to go over 5 divided by 5, which is 1. Okay, so your answer right here would be 8 over 1. Okay, and also don't reduce this down to just 8. Because remember, ratios compare 2 numbers, right? And if you just have one number, well, then there's nothing else to compare it to. So you need to keep that second number in there. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too bad. Let's go through this second example, and then I think you're going to kind of notice the pattern. So here, our ratio is 0.055 to 2.5, right? So again, your first step is just rewriting this as a fraction. And again, the first number right here goes on top. So I'm going to write this as 0.055 over 2.5. Okay, now the second step is figuring out which of these two numbers has more decimal places. Well, let's see, this one just has 1, right? The tenths place, and then this one has 1, 2, 3. Okay, and in what decimal place does this end in? Well, this is the tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So since this number up here has more decimal places and it ends in the thousandths place, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by 1,000. Okay, multiply the top and the bottom by 1,000. Okay, now after that, all you have to do is multiply these together. Okay, so again, the trick to multiplying decimals times a power of 10 is just looking at how many zeros you have. So we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. Okay, so that means we're going to move our decimal 3 times, and we're going to move it to the right. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so your decimal goes right there. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing to the number down here, right? Because we're also multiplying it by 1,000. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3, and it goes right there. Okay, now if you notice, again, we have some empty spots right here. Okay, so whenever you have some empty spaces, just fill in the blanks by putting zeros right there. Okay, so now I'm going to rewrite my answer up here. So now up here, instead of having 0.055, our number is going to be 55. And then that's going to go over. So before we had 2.5, but now we have 2,500. Okay, so your answer right here would be 55 over 2,500. Okay, and if we wanted to, we could also reduce this one because the top and the bottom are both divisible by 5, right? So if I divided the top by 5, 55 divided by 5 would be 11, okay? And if I divided the bottom by 5, my answer down here would be 500, okay? And an easy way of doing that is just ignore the zeros for a second. So now what's our problem? It's 25 divided by 5, right? So your answer is 5. But then if you bring back in the 2 zeros, all you have to do is tack them on at the end, okay? So that's a little shortcut way of dividing big numbers that end with 0. So then your answer right here would simply be 11 over 500. All right, guys, so that is how you convert decimal ratios to fractions. All right, so I hope these 2 examples were helpful. I know it can be a pain in the butt keeping track of the decimal, but if you just practice a couple problems like that, I have confidence in you that you'll get it, okay? So if the video was helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up. And if you still have any questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to try and help you out. Also, there's a playlist attached at the end of the video, so if there's any other topics you need help with, definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.